Everybody want me to talk about it, man. Chief Keef and NBA Youngboy did a song together, man.
Bro really thought the YB link-up was just music. Turns out, for some people in OTF, that was the line he wasn't supposed to cross. And now, the internet is buzzing. The comment sections are going crazy. And everybody is trying to figure out what exactly just happened between Chief Keef and the crew he's been riding with since before either of them had a deal. Look, this is one of those situations where you gotta slow down and actually understand the full picture. Because on the surface, it looks like just another rap beef, another social media moment, another thing that'll blow over in a week. But when you dig into the history, the street context, the legal chaos surrounding OTF right now, and the specific dynamics between Sosa and Durk's people, this thing is a lot deeper than a TikTok title is gonna tell you. So let me break this down from the beginning, because this situation did not start last week. This has been building for over a decade. Chief Keef, born Keith Farrell Cozart out of Washington Park on Chicago's South Side, is 30 years old and has been one of the most influential artists to ever come out of that city. No debate on that. When Sosa dropped I Don't Like in 2012, he didn't just change Chicago rap. He changed the entire direction of American hip-hop. The drill sound, the aesthetic, the energy, all of that traces back to him. And he did it before he was old enough to vote, from a city that was already at war with itself. OTF, Only the Family, was built by Lil Durk around 2010, coming out of that same Southside energy, though from a different pocket. Durk, now 33 and currently locked up on federal charges, constructed OTF into one of the most successful rap families in the game. King Von was OTF, Duty Low was OTF. Lil Reese has been in Keef's orbit since the beginning, but has ties that run through the same circles. These crews weren't always enemies, but they weren't always family either. Here's the thing a lot of people outside Chicago don't understand. Keef was Lamron. OTF was OTF. Both black disciples, technically. But in Chicago, it ain't just about what you rep overall. It's about what pocket you from, what block you on, who your people are specifically. And in the early days, those distinctions mattered in ways that went well beyond music. But that's only part of what went down, because the relationship between Keef and Durk specifically got way more complicated before it got smoother. Here's the spark behind the current noise. In early 2026, videos started spreading across YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, suggesting that Chief Keef had linked up with NBA Youngboy, YB, either on a collaboration, a feature, or a minimum, a public alignment. And that move, according to what's out there, did not sit well with at least some people flying the OTF flag. One Facebook post from around February 2026 went viral, a post tied to Fuchsia's TV, showing an OTF affiliated individual stating he was done listening to Chief Keef after the Youngboy link. That post pulled 551 reactions and 509 comments. That is not a small number for a community post. That is a genuine pulse check on what the streets and the fans are actually feeling about this situation. Multiple YouTube videos dropped in the same window, titles like Chief Keef fires, back after OTF disses him over YB link up, Chief Keef break, silence as OTF turns on him over NBA, and Chief Keef responds to OTF members, dissing him for linking with YB, the last of which pulled close to 74,000 views when it posted on February 17, 2026 on the Rap Thread channel. These aren't fringe posts. These are channels that cover verified rap news. And the view counts tell you the culture is paying attention. Now, and this is important, there is legitimate debate about exactly what Keef said and how far this has actually gone. Say Cheese TV and other sources with closer access to the situation flagged that some of the circulating audio allegedly from Keef was edited or pulled from older content, and no formal written or video statement from Sosa himself addressing OTF directly has been fully confirmed at time of writing. His Instagram, as of February 20th, 2026, was pushing album promo. No direct mention of Durk, no direct mention of OTF. But here's what doesn't require debate. The response from OTF's side was public enough to be documented. The community reaction was real enough to generate hundreds of thousands of impressions across platforms. And the YB angle is not random. There's actual history behind why that particular collaboration would create friction. And that's where it gets even more wild. Because to understand why Youngboy specifically would matter in this equation, you gotta understand the broader landscape these artists are navigating. NBA Youngboy is from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and has had his own complicated relationship with Chicago artists over the years. In 2025, YoungBoy made moves that included what sources describe as general Chicago disses on a track. No specific names confirmed in the verified record, but the sentiment was read by Chicago streets as a shot in that general direction. For OTF specifically, aligning with or even publicly rocking with YoungBoy in that climate could be read as a statement, whether Keef meant it that way or not. And that is actually the crux of the conflict here. In Chicago's drill world, and frankly, in the broader rap ecosystem, collaboration isn't just about music. Who you get in the booth with, who you're photographed with, who you show up for publicly, those choices carry weight. They communicate loyalty, alignment, and sometimes opposition. When you've come from a specific set, from a specific block, those signals get read back home even if you're living in Los Angeles, which Keef has been doing since 2014. Keef relocated to LA a decade ago, initially following his departure from Chicago, amid a series of legal complications and housing issues that pushed him toward the West Coast. His distance from Chicago extended across years of probation and legal entanglements. He's been building from the West Coast, running his boutique label 43B, a label he launched in 2022, and operating largely on his own terms outside of the formal Chicago rap structure. That independence has been both a strength and a complication. When you're physically distanced from where you're from for a decade, your reads on what's politically hot back home can drift. And when a decision you make, like a YB collaboration, rubs people the wrong way in your city, you don't have the day-to-day presence to manage the fallout in real time. The streets don't wait for you to clarify in an IG caption. Now here's where history is looking like it's about to repeat itself, because Keef and OTF have been here before. Not in the exact same form, but the pattern of tension, followed by squash, followed by new tension, is documented. Go back to 2013. In the early days of Chicago drill, Lamron, Keef's set, and OTF were navigating the same Southside ecosystem with very different energy. That era produced real casualties, real diss tracks, and real street-level conflict. The name Lil Jojo, a young Chicago rapper killed in 2012, is woven through that history. The sets named in his music reflected the factional reality of what was happening in those blocks. And while Keef wasn't directly fingered in that situation, the larger Lamron versus OTF pocket dynamics were loud during that period. By 2014, audio leaked, showing Keef making subtle shade comments toward Dirk, the fake BD narrative, questioning Dirk's gang affiliation authenticity. In Chicago, that is not a small thing. Gang credibility is tied to actual neighborhood standing, actual relationships, actual history on the block. Calling someone's affiliation into question is a direct challenge to their legitimacy. And Dirk was still building his reputation at that point. But here's where the story pivots. By 2015, that beef was publicly squashed. And more than squashed, Dirk has spoken openly about the fact that Keef's cosign and industry connections helped him lock in his Interscope deal. Keef's early success opened doors for Chicago artists in ways that were institutional, not just cultural. Dirk acknowledged that multiple times. By 2018, Keef and Dirk had publicly collaborated and shown visible alignment, a relationship that had moved past the early tension into something that looked like genuine mutual respect and creative connection. As recently as 2022, Keef was in XXL calling Dirk family. In 2023 on Vlad TV, Dirk called Keef the one who put Chicago on. These are not throwaway PR quotes. These are substantive statements about mutual respect between two men who came from the same city and understood what each other built. So when you look at 2026 and see OTF members publicly distancing from Keef over a YoungBoy move, that is not a feud that started last month. That is a relationship with a decade and a half of history, early war, reconciliation, real collaboration, and now new friction. And what makes it feel different this time is the context surrounding OTF right now, because what happens next could change everything. And the shadow over all of this is Lil Durk's federal case. On October 24th, 2024, Dirk was arrested on murder-for-hire allegations out of the Central District of California. The allegations involve a plot against Quando Rondo's cousin, tied to the retaliatory fallout surrounding King Von's death in Atlanta in November 2020. Dirk was denied bail. His defense team asserted innocence in court filings by December 2024. A trial is scheduled for April 21st, 2026 in federal court, case number CR 24621. This is not a state-level case that might get knocked down or plea dealed away quietly. This is federal, and federal cases carry a completely different weight, different prosecution standards, different sentencing exposure, and a different kind of public scrutiny. When Durk's name is in a federal indictment, everyone connected to OTF is operating under a microscope, internally and externally. The organizational pressure that creates is massive. OTF has been linked in various reports to serious violence going back to its early years. King Von's death in 2020 reshaped the entire crew's emotional and operational reality. Duty Low, who was a visible OTF presence, began distancing from the crew in 2025, following the ripple effects of Durk's arrest. Lil Reese, in 2024, was posting on Twitter with shade directed at Lamron Fakes, not naming Keef directly, but the direction of that energy was not subtle to anyone paying attention. When an organization is under that kind of federal pressure, internal discipline tightens. Loyalty tests happen, sometimes explicitly, sometimes through social media signaling. An OTF-affiliated person publicly announcing they're done with Chief Keef for rocking with Youngboy, that is not a random individual expressing a music preference. That is a signal being sent in a very specific context. It's a loyalty flag being planted in public. And it happened while Durk is sitting in federal holding with a murder-for-hire case over his head. Think about the timing. Keef rose to LA years ago. He's building independently under 43B. He links with Youngboy, an artist who threw Chicago shots in 2025. And he does all of this while Durk is off the board, unable to respond or manage from the inside. The optics on that from OTF's perspective, that's a lot. Now here's where it stays unresolved. And this is the part that matters most, because this situation is not closed. As of right now, there is no confirmed direct statement from Chief Keef formally addressing OTF, formally addressing the YB situation, or formally declaring any kind of separation. His February 2026 Instagram was album promo. No smoke, no oil, but the content circulating on YouTube and TikTok, videos with tens of thousands of views describing him as responding, firing back, or breaking silence, tells you the public is already framing this as a confrontation, whether Keef has formally entered it or not. And that gap between what the internet is saying and what Keef has actually confirmed is exactly where these things get dangerous. Because in Chicago's ecosystem, silence can be read as a statement. Not responding can be interpreted as admission or acceptance. And the people who are publicly putting distance between themselves and Sosa are not doing it quietly. They're doing it on Facebook with 500 reactions and 500 comments, where the whole neighborhood is watching. Keef's 43B Spring 2026 tour is coming. That means live appearances, public moments, opportunities for shade from OTF-affiliated artists, or worse, from people on the ground who feel some type of way about the Youngboy move. The street-level tension between Lamron's legacy and OTF's current reality has been described by Chicago law enforcement gang audits as dormant but volatile. Those aren't words that suggest the situation has been fully defused. And looming over all of it is Durk's federal trial, scheduled for April 2026. What happens in that courtroom could implicate people, shift alliances, and forge statements from artists who've been sitting quiet. If testimony comes out, if plea agreements surface, if names get called in federal proceedings, the people closest to that situation will have to take positions, publicly or privately. And Keef's relationship to all of it, his silence, his LA distance, his Youngboy alignment, will get read through whatever lens that trial creates. The questions that are still open are serious ones. Did Keef and Youngboy formally release a collaboration, or is this still a street-level alignment that got politicized? Are the OTF voices speaking out against Keef representing an organizational position, or isolated individuals reacting independently? And if Durk's trial produces the kind of ripple effects that federal cases typically create in these tight-knit crews, what does Keef's position look like on the other side of that? Nobody has the full answers yet. What we know is that Sosa built something in Chicago that permanently changed music. What we know is that the relationship between him and OTF has gone through more phases than most people outside Chicago are aware of. And what we know is that right now, in early 2026, that relationship is cracking in public, over a Youngboy link, over a decade of distance, over a federal case that has OTF operating in survival mode. The streets are watching. Stay locked in.